Right, well, hello everyone. I'm Chris Grant from Passle, and I'm joined today by Eric Murphy of Babelquest, who's an inbound strategist. And I'll kind of let Eric introduce himself and tell us a little bit about what he does.
Hi, yes. So I'm Eric Murphy. I'm a founder and of Babelquest. I'm an inbound strategist. We specialize in inbound marketing and inbound sales, and content marketing is one of the largest components of inbound marketing. And we've thought it was going to be useful to share with people what we saw as the three big problems of content marketing from both the content and an inbound perspective, because they closely tie up, and how we've gone ahead and addressed those challenges with some of our clients so they've found a way to resolve them for themselves and make those resolutions stick.
Brilliant, thank you. So we're going to talk broadly today around what we found to be the three biggest problems in content marketing, those being sort of time and cost, and followed by what to write about, and then a little bit on building an audience with a sort of subtext of how do I know it's working, or indeed convince my boss it's working. We're gonna try and get as much in on each one as we can, but obviously half an hour is quite a short time, so we'll probably just be scratching the surface. If anybody has any questions, then please do type them into the chat pane or the questions pane, and we will then start answering them and addressing them a little bit nearer the end. And so just before we launch into the first problem, in my experience, if you don't have a plan, then you're essentially setting yourself up to fail. I don't know if you've got any experience on with your clients on strategy, Eric.
Well, certainly, strategy is the first thing that you have to address. And in particular, when it comes to content marketing, the most important thing is to be understanding who your target personas are. So this whole idea of you need to write for your audience. And if you haven't got a full understanding of exactly what that is, then you make these three big problems, content marketing, a little bigger. And we should probably touch back onto personas at that planning stage as we're talking about those each of the individual three problems. But yeah, absolutely. Planning up front, you need to have a plan. You need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's probably something we could probably address in a future webinar in full. But just being conscious of the time, I think we'll talk a little bit about problem number one here. That being the whole concept of time and costs. Basically, how can I fund it, and indeed, how could I make time or find time to actually do it and do it properly? So I don't know if you've got anything to kick off with there, Eric.
Yeah, I think really just kind of outlining how that problem manifests itself, because if it's down to the marketing department to generate the content, and they're usually overstretched already, they've usually got limited resources, and while they might actually really enjoy writing, actually finding the time on a consistent basis to be able to generate the volume of content that you need is really hard. Also then, if you're reaching out inside your business to try to get your subject matter experts to bring out the kind of, to write their professional opinions on things and to generate premium quality copy that and content that your audience need, is challenging, particularly if you're in businesses where their time is closely allied to the revenue of the business. So obviously, Chris, your product works really has really taken off in the professional services market, where billable hours is a big concept for particularly for the leaders of the business. So it's closely tied to money. Money and cost, same problem. Trying to get hold of people to give up their time to do that, but also in different industries that we work in, whether that's in technical, and we're trying to get specialists, engineers, scientists, technical people to contribute their time, or in organizations which are very much sales-led, and the real valuable content is coming from those conversations that the salespeople are having out with the customers, trying to get the salespeople to contribute content on a regular basis without it eating into their sales time is really, really difficult. And trying to build the case for content marketing with those continually to get that regular content coming through is a big problem.
And also, I think it's worth saying that it's one of those things that's probably quite difficult at the start, because obviously the ideal is to get your subject matter experts and your salespeople to actually buy into this concept, but it's perhaps difficult to demonstrate the benefits to them directly in the short term.
Yeah, there is that. So I think in terms of you're presenting it to them properly, I think it's easy for them to understand the concept of why they should do it. When you start moving into how they should do it without, and they see a direct conflict with the day job, with things that they're actually getting paid to do on a measurable basis, that's making a difference to them daily, to try to generate this amount of competition. So marketing want me to do some content, but I've got the sales job to do, or marketing want me to produce this blog or do this white paper or put an industry piece together, when actually I've got client deliverables that I need to do. It's trying to maintain a level of priority with those people. It's very easy for them to slip over, to miss the point, or for it to be downgraded in terms of their daily and weekly activity.
Very much so, and certainly in my experience, getting that initial engagement can be very tricky. But actually, with the, I suppose especially with in my experience with the subject matter experts, that once you can actually get them to engage with it, and I think in many ways, and I'm sure you'll agree, the best way to get them to engage is actually to make it nice and easy for them to actually create the content. We at Passle, we use a piece of software that makes it nice and easy for them to comment on what's going on, but I think other solutions include just things like actually sort of directly going up to your subject matter experts and asking their opinion on things, and then as a marketing person actually taking that opinion away and perhaps creating some sort of content around it.
Yeah, and I think we've got some of the solutions that we see up on the screen now. It is about making it quick and easy. It is great using the Passle tool, and it is also really important for marketers to actually go interview the people in their business and to talk to them regularly about the kind of things that they're seeing. So for awareness stage content, where we're trying to write about the kind of problems that our prospects or buyers are finding out in the world, salespeople are a great source of that. So setting regular calls up between sales and marketing on the subject of what's happening out there, what conversations are happening, what interesting conversations have happened over this last few weeks, and what were the things that sparked those, and what pain points are people seeing, can generate an awful lot of content.
So it's really important to build this link between marketing and essentially all other departments, so that they're actually getting direct feedback about the questions that customers are asking and how they can actually help.
Yeah, it's beginning to collect some of those interesting conversations that are going on around the business. I mean, the job of marketing, and the job of content marketing in particular, we see it's about starting and then maintaining conversations at a distance. So the best place to go and find out where that content is to start where the actual conversations are going on right now. Talk to the salespeople, talk to the business leaders, talk to anybody who's customer facing. Talk to your help desk to find out wherever those conversations are happening. Is there something there that is a pressing concern? Is there something that people have common questions about or objections around? Can you write about that and put it out to a wider audience?
Very much so. And just touching on a couple of these other things that we put up on the screen, I think we've talked about a little bit about engaging your experts, and I think there the point about speaking their language is also very important. That your in-house experts aren't really that interested in marketing metrics. Things like conversions and all those sorts of things are not really the things that motivate them. So what you have to do is really find those sort of key points that actually motivate. If you've got an engineer, then sort of recognition or a write-up in the trade press or whatever it happens to be are the things that are actually going to motivate your engineer to actually produce content for you. So I think it's important.
I think what's really a great way to deal with engineers or anybody with a kind of technical engineering scientific bent is to get them to draw out the kind of issue that they're seeing and ask them for their opinion on it. If there's people who tend to like to hold forth on something, on a matter that they know something about, and it's a great way to get the conversation going. Don't pitch it as we need to get some marketing copy out of you. Ask them what type of conversations they're in. Ask them what challenges people have faced, what are the problems that are out there, and what's their professional opinion on that. You'll get a lot more content from them.
Yeah, I think that's very important, and yeah, just talking their language. And a little bit quickly, just to touch on the concept of gamification. That actually, certainly we found that gamifying the whole process can be very, very powerful. Just in terms of, in my experience, the dangling of a trophy and a bottle of champagne in front of a group of experts can be incredibly motivating to actually get them to do what you want them to do.
Yeah, it's just trying to bring a sense of competition and a bit of fun into it. It's you need to make the process enjoyable for the people who are producing the content for you, because because it can be hard work. But if you're bringing in the idea of competition and gaming, it's a great way to drive up the engagement.
And I think also something in my experience, is the importance of feedback. I think somebody the other day was talking about when you go 10-pin bowling, and this concept that after you let your ball go, a big black screen comes down and you don't ever see how many pins you've knocked down, and you really probably wouldn't stay in the bowling alley that long. And I think for subject matter experts, it's very much the same. If you can tell your chief exec or your head of engineering or your head of technical that they've contributed to a blog post or a piece of content that's got 1,500 views, and some people have clicked through and they've got some inquiries from that, then I think they're going to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it just really plays into the side of, and then what? So they've done this, and then what happens? Well, then what happens is that a lot of people engage with the post. Some people may even put comments and reshare the thing, or they're posting out on social media, or it might actually get you into a more meaningful, wider conversation with that person. So having those initial metrics coming back to show that you're actually building engagement, that the article worked, that you caught people's attention, can then spur them on to think, well, if that works and people are interested in that, what else can I write about? What else can we talk about? How do we move the conversation further?
Yeah. So I mean, really just sort of, I suppose, summarising that brief scratch of problem number one, it's basically a case of just finding a way to make it quick and easy, because less time is less cost. Getting everyone in the organisation to contribute, and I think it's not just creating content, but also getting them to share content that their colleagues have created. Gamification, engaging your experts, and making sure you've got some feedback. We're going to move on, because time is precious here.
Just one thing, that problem one, that really boiling it down to the most important thing in this thing is making it quick and easy. We need to get content production down from it being in hours into minutes, and I think that's something that the tool does very well. But let's go on to the next one. We'll talk about a little bit more about how we address that later.
Sure. So essentially, problem number two, I think when we were discussing this beforehand, the big problem number two was basically this whole concept of inspiration or ideas and relevance, and actually how to start creating the sort of content that's actually going to work for you as an organisation.
Yeah. So what am I going to write about?
Essentially, yes. Always the tricky one. I think staring at a blank piece of paper is a pretty daunting task. What in your experience are some of the ways that we can actually start to go about solving this problem?
Oh, we see this objection every single time we begin an engagement with the client. That once they first got over we'll find some ways to be able to make it faster and quicker and less costly. But then what am I going to write about? Where do I find inspiration? There's only so many things that we can write about. Yes, if you're talking about what your solution is, and what your offer, what your products is, what your firm does, there are only so many things that you can write about, and there's probably even less of those that are actually interesting to anybody. So the way to solve that problem is to not to write about you and your offer. It's to talk about things that are relevant to your buyers, to your prospects, and their favourite subjects being, number one, themselves, and number two, their problems. If you look at that, you'll realize that there really isn't any end to the amount of things that you could be writing about. So trying to reach out into what are the things that are going on in mainstream media that are representative of the problems, or talking about the lifestyles on the challenges of the people that you sell to. There's plenty of content out there that you can bring your professional opinion to, and to join a conversation and make sense for your buyer to help them move in towards you.
And I think that very much it goes back to your point earlier about actually knowing who your audience are, and having an idea of these personas. Yeah.
Yeah, critical point. If you understand who it is that you're talking to, and you've got a good understanding of where they are, so you know where to distribute the content. But you understand what their problems are, what the challenges are in their world, and importantly, the kinds of language and phrases that they use. That will resonate with them so they understand it. So you've got those shortcuts to understanding. To write something that's very, very technical to an audience who don't understand that level of complexity will just kill it stone dead. But also finding that if your audience is very technical and have a level of understanding about who you are and what you do, you can move into things that are more engaging and more advanced for them. Trying to gauge that and get that right is the key part to it, because you've got to be respectful of people's time as well. Well, there's lots of main cue for this. Look at what's happening in the mainstream media. You'd be surprised at how many of the key influencers, even for very niche areas of interest, the key influencers and other people, so the people who write the most there, where they go to get influence from, it tend to be in the mainstream media. We certainly found that people like in the technology sector, people are following people at the BBC and the Guardian and the Times. You know, they're looking there for the inspiration to see the new stories come through, and then they give their more industry-focused view. But go to the same sources that your industry leaders are in as well, to be able to reach themselves in the same way.
So you can actually start offering your own particular take on those stories, and I suppose actually just making sure that it also makes sure that you're very, very current with what's going on. I mean, just
yeah, absolutely.
In your experience, have you got any sort of helpful suggestions for how to start drilling into this concept of what your audience is actually interested in?
Yeah, well, you do need to start with some persona planning. I'd look at the buyer journey as well, and I'd look at the different types of content that are going to help them move at different stages. So in terms of buyer journey, 3 stages. I'll run through it really quickly: awareness, consideration, decision. The types of content that you need to generate in those places are actually quite different. Awareness, this is not your normal marketing land awareness and brand awareness. This is awareness of problems. So is your persona, are they just becoming aware of a problem now, and you're trying to find out more information about what their problem actually means? If you can write about that and then give them a different view on it, to say, well, if you look at it this way, you can move into discovering what the solutions are for you. Consideration falls into 3 separate sections. First one is, can I do nothing? Status quo. We're all naturally lazy people. Talks about people, what are the implications if you do nothing? What is the cost of inaction? Next bit, moving on from there, is to look into, can I do it myself? So things like how-to guides, show them how to solve the problem for themselves. And if they can't solve the problem for themselves because they don't have capacity, show them how that they can get help. And that's where you introduce what you do in your problem. So, you know, there's like 4 solid areas there, different types of content you can write about the same kind of pain point. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. I think yes. I think it's also this idea of, as you say, just sort of moving on a little bit from the way that perhaps people used to buy and look for things online, maybe sort of 10, 15 years ago, and actually embracing buyer behaviour and making sure that
people want to find the information out for themselves. We're getting more and more confident about our own our ability to research and find the right solutions. So if you want to be in those those buying conversations much earlier, you need to reach into the awareness and consideration stages and start talking about the things that matter to your buyer. Their number 1, problem identification, moving through to overcoming the status quo, moving through to, can I fix it myself? Once you've done those, then you've earned the right to be able to talk to them about how you could potentially help them.
So just summarising that quickly before we move on to the problem 3. which is appearing on screen. But essentially, it's about sort of flipping it on its head and stopping writing about yourself and actually writing about your buyers' problems. It's about knowing your audience and how you can help solve their problems, what questions they're asking, and how you can add value to add value on a consistent basis, and essentially make sure your audience keep coming back to read more of your content. And I think you've given a lot of really good ideas there. I think there's basically for every business there's an awful lot of content that they could be producing if they start taking a step back and taking this approach.
Yeah, just write about the buyer instead. Write for them.
Yeah, and I think that's applicable in every industry across the board. Yeah. So it seems like we really haven't scratched the surface of that one either. But moving on.
Resources around that, aren't there?
Yeah, I think so, and I think we'll probably end up writing a lot of blog posts following this anyway. But moving on to problem number 3 that we'd identified, which is, I suppose, basically this concept of building an audience, and I would put in brackets there, it's that question, how do I know if it's working, and how indeed do I see results?
Yeah. And not back towards that original question at the start about do you plan? The thing is, if you don't plan and don't have a goal, you'll never know whether you're successful or not, because success really is just achievement of the goal. So you have to set the goal out at the start. It's really bringing it back to that. Understand what it is that you're doing and what makes a difference for you.
Because I think one of the things that, in my experience, is a big issue is that a lot of the time people, without perhaps having a plan, they suddenly jump all over various random metrics and numbers and just sort of say, well, we want 100 views for this post and things like that. Do you think it's important to actually define your metrics right at the beginning and work out how you can quantify success?
Oh, definitely. So the way I'd look at it is, look, you're going on the car journey. The real measure of success is actually, do you arrive at the destination? And there's information that you can use on the way. You can look at the sat nav, you can look at the speedo, you can look at your fuel gauge, and all the rest of things. You can understand all those metrics that are helping you achieve the goal. But just looking at things like, is it getting you? So you're driving your web traffic up. So what? If you're driving up some more social engagement, so what? Are they things that are important for you to measure, to understand? Are you traveling at the right kind of speed, in the right kind of direction, to eventually hit the destination that you eventually want to get to? So if the purpose of your website is to be able to drive commercial conversations to get into some form of qualified lead that can be passed to sales to start a further conversation resulting in a customer, then the type of content that you write there is going to be should be geared towards starting that conversation and trying to identify the place in the buyer's journey where somebody's ready to reach out and begin a one-to-one conversation outside of the one-to-many. There may be other reasons why you're doing this. Your goal may not be that commercial output. It may be that it's trying to drive up education and awareness in a certain space for a different cause. Not those kind of things.
I think that's a really fabulous analogy. Actually, I think that kind of sums it up quite nicely. I think it comes down to the fact that yes, if you want lots of traffic, all you have to do is pop up a video of a kitten falling into a bowl of water. Lots of people come and view it. Lots of people write it, watch it, but none of them are ever going to end up doing business with you unless you're very, very lucky. In the law of randomness. The next question, I think I'd be really interested in your views on this, because I think a lot of inbound marketing, or the concepts in inbound marketing about this concept of a call to action and actually asking the reader to do something. I mean, do you think that's something that's very important?
No, absolutely. This is kind of the signpost, really, isn't it? So you've gone to the effort of producing this content. You've made it relevant and interesting and human. You've got somebody's attention. You've written considering, but you've just asked them to actually spend some of their time and attention reading something that you've done. Surely you must have a next action there for them. Make it simple. Don't do this typical thing that we have on sites where there's 17 different calls to action at the bottom. Hey, look, read another 6 blogs that are relevant to this. Tell them what you want them to do next. If you're interested in this, what's the next step? How do you move somebody through their buy journey? Remember what we're trying to get somebody to move from becoming aware of a problem through their consideration stages of do nothing, do it myself, get some help, and into a decision saying, okay, I'm ready to have a conversation with somebody. I am ready to purchase something. I'm ready to get some help with this particular problem. Use your content and give the call to action to move them from maybe awareness into the initial parts of consideration or through the consideration funnel. Help them if in your typical marketing funnel arrangements, if you're generating awareness content at the top of the funnel, what's the call to action to get them into the middle? What's the call to action to get them into the bottom and into the sales conversation?
So it all goes back to that, I suppose, that original strategy point that, that you really have to have a plan at the beginning in order to actually see results through to the end. And I don't think any of these, issues, addressing any of these issues, are going to work that well unless you actually have that that initial plan.
Well, just a bit literary of the whole thing, and there's the Alice in Wonderland quote of meeting the caterpillar and asks, well, which way should I go? He said, well, where do you want to get to? He said, I don't mind much. He said, in which case it doesn't matter. If you're leaving people there with not giving them a clear choice as to where they should go next, if they've read your content, they're interested in finding out more, move them to the next stage, make it clear.
Very much so. And I think just as a final, as a sort of final wrap up on that issue, because I'm conscious that we've nearly done our half an hour. It's actually there's some sort of summary on screen, but this concept of iteration and actually being prepared to test and analyze the effect of different forms of content. And what's your view on that?
I'll tell a really interesting story that happened at the when we had one of the speakers from HubSpot at one of our recent user groups, and Chris, you were there as well, and they said that 90-odd%, there was 92% of HubSpot's customers come from their old content, and obviously, I imagine much of the audience here, if they're interested in content marketing laws, if some awareness of HubSpot are, but what they said was that the content wasn't more successful just because it was old. It was more successful because it had been continually reviewed and improved. So on a monthly basis, to go back over the old content, find a way to update it and improve it. So if you've got a piece of content that's 12 months old, that had been iterated and improved 12 times to the point where it's actually then become something that's converting really well. So go over your old content, review it, improve it, take the stuff down if it's not resonating. If something's working well, improve it, make it longer, make it shorter, try a few different things, improve your call to action, try to get it refocused and distribute it again to be able to drive more traffic. Go with what works and make more of it.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I suppose just sort of wrapping up and trying to condense everything we've talked about, and also I think at this point, if anybody's got any questions, do feel free to type them into the chat window or hang around afterwards. But yeah, I mean, something I think is something a quote I very much like from the Content Marketing Institute, which is just this concept that a content campaign is a red flag because you're automatically setting an end date. If you're basically saying this is something short term, however, content marketing is a marathon, not a sprint, and I think that kind of encapsulates a lot of what we've discussed. But I don't know if you'd like to just summarise and perhaps give your key top tip on each issue. So on the issue of I suppose time and cost, what would you say is your top tip to sort that problem out?
Yeah, look at making it as easy as possible for the people who are generating the content, and try to do whatever you can to pull it down to frequent, short-form copy that is capturing conversations that are happening in the real world. Make it really easy for them to talk about the things that are actually happening. Even just referring back to this idea of this slide here with content marketing to marathon, not sprint. You wouldn't expect your business to say, you know what, at the end of April, we're going to run a 2-week campaign where we're all going to talk to our customers. And then we run that for 2 weeks, and we won't do it again. We'll do that maybe again later in the year. You talk to your customers all the time. Your content should be doing exactly the same.
Brilliant, and that's very good, very useful. And So on our second problem, the idea of ideas and relevance. What do you think the top takeaway there is?
You'll never run out of ideas if you're talking about your customers and their problems, and the relevance it really is within that. Their two favourite subjects are themselves and what's going wrong. Right. So there's a never-ending supply in there.
So basically, lots and lots of content available, and just finally, a top tip on building an audience.
That's the building audiences around this idea of do you know it's working. Set your measures, understand what it is that you want to be doing. If it's a commercial site and you're looking to be able to generate leads that close into sales, find a way to track it through to at least be able to have feedback from sales to saying this type of content is the kind of thing that is engaging people in conversations and helping us advance the sale. That's what you want to be aiming for. And then set back the measures to understand, does increasing traffic and increasing engagement aid that cause, in which case it's worthwhile monitoring them. If not, don't. Stick to what's important.
Brilliant, thank you. So I think probably in summary, essentially what we need to be doing is making it easy for our people in the house to actually engage with the content process. We need to really understand our audience, who they are, what they want, and how we can add value and help them. And finally, to find a way to actually quantify and define the whole process, so that we can actually work our way through to that final goal. That's pretty much about wraps it up. Thank you very much, Eric, for joining us. It's been really great to get your views and your thoughts. To everyone watching, our contact details are on screen, so do get in touch via email, follow us on Twitter, or start off the conversation in various other ways. We'll be writing a couple of blog posts after this that try and summarise some of it, but Eric's got a great blog on the Babelquest site that goes into a lot more depth on a lot of this stuff, and you can also read some of my random utterings on the Passle B2B marketing blog. So yeah, I suppose without further ado, thank you very much, Eric, for joining us, and
thanks,
thank you everyone for attending.